when it comes to voiceover, it's not really all about the voice. It's about selling the product or promoting the product. So when I understand what voiceover really is, after years of being in it and taking classes with some great coaches, I wanted to share that with radio people because oftentimes we believe that since we have access to a microphone in a production room, and we've read commercials, I found out for myself without experience, we really don't know what we're doing. I found out by actually going to a school and reading a commercial. The guy said, "Are you a radio guy?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "How can you tell?" I said, "You sound like a radio guy. We don't want you to sound like that." So they taught us how to sound like a human being, just ourselves. And sometimes we don't like ourselves. We like our fake voices. So I learned to love my fake voice, and they helped me find my real voice because sometimes it's required for a commercial. It's required for maybe a character spot. Um, it's required for a narration where you're telling a story. I mean, there are different genres in voiceover, and that's something that we had to learn and find out. And the hardest part of them all is that you have to choose which one you want to do first and stick to that one and learn that. Because if you're the jack of all trades, you become the master of nothing at all. So I had to become the master of what was best for me. What did I really want to do? I want to do radio imaging, right? So I learned radio imaging and I stuck to that. And before you know it, I was blessed with a whole bunch of stations that I'm voicing now, from WHUR in DC to station in Toronto, Las Vegas, Nashville. I've voiced WBLS at one point. I was a voice of K-Day. I was a voice of stations in Chicago, so 106.3. So my voice has been in every major market in the country, still is today. And to be able to do that, it's just a complete blessing. It's a complete blessing. And now that I'm on ESPN, heard by millions around the world, man, God keep me around for some reason. So with that, that's why I say if that young kid who got kicked out of school can become a syndicated host, can work in New York City, have a billboard, right?
Right.
And can be the voice of BET and ESPN and every other thing that I did, I'm going to share it with you and show you how I did it. I'm just like you. I'm just like you. Wow, I love telling a story. I was about 15, 16 years old. I would call the radio station in Chicago every day, making dedications to my then girlfriend who was in school while I wasn't in school. And I called the radio station so much, it was WBMX in Chicago. The radio personality picking up the phone on the other end was the one and only Earl Boston. And he called me. I mean, he said to me, he said, "Why are you calling me every single day?" And I said, "I'm sick." He said, "Man, don't give me that. Tell the truth." And I said, "I got kicked out of school." He said, "No, what happened?" And well, living in Chicago, gang problems existed then as they do today. And I just didn't want to go to school. And plus, my mother was an educator. She was going to school every day. She stayed on us about homework. I was sick and tired of doing homework. I just sick and tired of the gang problems. So my mother would leave for school. I would make her think that, I was gone. So I'd probably hide in a room somewhere. So she'd leave and I'd stay home. And one day when this is high school too. One day I went to school and the history teacher said, he was calling names, but he didn't recognize me. He said, "Who are you?" I said, I'm Rick." He said, "Oh yeah, you've been expelled a long time ago." Then my father had to come up, and that's when I started making dedications on the radio station. So Earl would say to me, "Man, listen, you have to get back into school." So I did. And not only that, by this man taking the time talking to me, I wanted to be just like him. So I enrolled into the Columbia School of Broadcasting in Chicago. And at the same time, there was an opening at a local radio station for kids called WCYC 90.5. It was a 10-watt station that covered a mile radius of the radio station. And it was for kids. So the Boys and Girls Club owned this, and they gave kids an opportunity to be on it. So me working on this station and also um, going to the Columbia School of Broadcasting, that helped excel my career. So not only was I a great host at the school, with some accelerated experience, I became the school's program director at a teenager. And so I'm thinking in my mind, I should be on the air in Chicago on the big radio station. I was just a kid. Well, I started sending my audition tapes out in 86 or 87. In 87, I sent it out to everybody. And in 88, I got a call back from a station in Wilmington, North Carolina. It was called WBMS 1340. It was an AM station. And I was about 18, 19 years old. I was 19 years old. It's an overnight slot, Janelle. So it's like late at night, but that they had me on the air. It's like a real radio station that everybody in my mind could hear me in Wilmington. And it was a popular radio station. So I'm 19 years old with this voice, 1340 WBMS. This is Zurich, because my real name is Zurich, right? So Zurich Giron, I was using my first and middle name. This is Zurich Giron on the radio on 1340 WBMS. I had this whole big voice coming from this kid, and we were taught, to be professional. That was the thing, because I've been listening to Earl Boston and Tom Joyner and Doug Banks. They were all local. This is before Syndicated existed. Doug and Tom were on WGCI. So my goal in my mind, Janelle, was to get back to WGCI. So this is 88. So from 88, I worked in Wilmington, North Carolina. 2 months after that, I went to Macon, Georgia, to a station called Foxy 100. Almost a year later, not quite a year, I went to Charleston, South Carolina, to WMGL Magic 101.7, and then on to Norfolk, Virginia, Wowee 103 Jams in 89. After that, I went to 100.3 Jams in Dallas. So I'm climbing up, right? So remember, from Wilmington now to Dallas, Texas. And I'm probably, 21, 22, something like that. Wow. So I'm in Dallas, Texas now, doing the night show. And by this time I'm doing, these are all afternoons or nights, stuff like that. High ratings, young kid, going to high schools and colleges, and, everybody's listening to the night show. You didn't have CDs, and you didn't have social media. Right. So now I'm in Dallas, and I get a call to work in Miami. So Hot 105 in Miami called me in 1990. So I did the afternoon show there and then the night show there. And then after that, after working all of these stations from 88 to 90, 91, after a year in Miami, I get the call from, no, actually it was 1992. I get the call from WGCI. So 4 years traveling, right? Mm-hmm. This is my college. This is my university, all of these radio stations. WGCI calls me in 1992 and said they have an opening. And I remember in Miami, I was making $38,000 a year. That was the salary for my afternoon show. And they had gone through a few formats. And Elroy Smith called me. He said, we have an opening to work at WGCI. And they said, well, what would it take to get you here? And a friend of mine, Chio the Hitman, was working in San Diego in Key 106 at the time. We came up together. He said he made $50,000 working at Z100 in New York. Wow. And Elroy asked me, what do I want? I said, I want $50,000 to come to Chicago. And he said, well, we can't give you that. So I sent a demo and a video demo, and the general manager saw it. And he said, man, I got your videotape, and this is the most incredible thing that I've ever seen. And I loved your audio demo. You want $50,000, and I saw you in the video. So bring your ugly ass to Chicago. We're going to pay you. So, and that was it. So 4 years in a row, I was back home in Chicago. Dream come true. Hometown boy made good. Now I'm on the radio on WGCI. Doug Banks in the morning, Tom Joyner in the afternoons, and me at nighttime. Wow. Rick Party made it home.
When you're talking about your story and you get to WGCI and you're doing nights, at the height of that, you decided to go into the VO world. And
it wasn't even that. It wasn't even at that time. Actually, at GCI, spending 4 hours, 4 years at GCI, I then went to Atlanta to V103 in 1996 to do afternoon for 2 years. Killed it there in the ratings. And then I was doing afternoons. After killing it there, GCI called me back to do afternoons. Wow. And then after 2 years in Chicago, for whatever reason, they let me go. The ratings were great. It was even in the headlines of the Chicago Sun-Times. WGCI is #1 WGCI is at top with Rick Party at number one. And it made no sense why they let me go. But it was a budget cut, I found out much later. And probably some other differences. But, it is what it is. It's a learning lesson. Then I worked at the top 40 station, which was Kiss FM in Chicago for 2 years, which was still owned by iHeart. So when GCI had to let me go, they still had to pay me out. But they said, listen, we're going to move you to our other property, the top 40 station, so you can start that. So I was their first hire in the afternoon show. I was there for 2 years. Wow. And then Miami called me back to do afternoons at 99 Jams. After 6 months doing afternoons at 99 Jams, they moved me to mornings. After a year of doing mornings in Miami at 99 Jams, WBLS in New York called me to do mornings. And then after my short stint at WBLS, the Rick Party Morning Show in New York City, right? Billboards and everything. And here's something, Janelle, like when I was younger, like, the dream is like to see your face on billboards, right? I said, man, if I can have that in my own city of Chicago, and never have to happen in any other city, but it happened in the number one market in the world, the most respected urban radio station in the big market is WBLS, the home of Frankie Crocker and some of the great personalities ever. I was hired to be the morning man at the same station Wendy Williams was doing afternoons. The kid who got kicked out of school. My experience was short-lived, but I had a morning show and I had billboards all over New York City. And that was a dream come true. And it was when that experience is over, that's when BET called me and said they needed a voiceover for a promo. And they got it back within 5 minutes. I was like, we just sent it to you. I was like, that's how I do it. You send it to me, I'm sending it right back. And that created a 9-year relationship as me as the voice of BET. And that's where I could say, as far as nationwide, where people heard me on television, that was my biggest client. I had already done radio imaging on a few stations here and there, but that was really what kicked it off.
And so you're doing this and you're very successful in it. You decided to go back into radio. Why did you decide to go back into radio instead of just sticking with doing VO work for the rest of your career?
The funny thing is, check this out. For 9 years, I was minding my own business, right? Michael Baisden he didn't want to sign his contract. So he wanted more money or something, whatever it was. So the guy who was the vice president of programming for Tom Joyner's company, Reach Media, he was my program director in Miami years ago. The first time I was in Miami, not the third time I was in Miami. Remember, I was there for 3 times. And here comes the third time. I didn't even introduce that yet. So for 9 years, I was just chilling. And they needed someone to replace Michael Baisden because he was not going to sign. And they said, my old program director called me, said, I'm the new VP of programming for Reach Media, Tom Joyner's company. Michael Baisden is not going to sign. Would you be interested? I'm looking at the phone like, first of all, am I being pranked or something? Like, I've been out of radio for 9 years. Y'all calling me to replace Michael Baisden, a syndicated show? Like, for real? Like, this has got to be unreal. But there was a part of me that felt like, well, I have paid my dues in this business. So for them to call me, nobody should be surprised. But I just couldn't believe that it was really happening like that. So I said, yeah, man, I want it. I'm interested. And I knew I could do it, even though I hadn't been in radio for 9 years. It's all I knew how to do.
Right.
And so he flew down from DC. I picked him up from the Miami airport, and because I was back in Miami by this time, and because I always kept a place there. My family was there now, and so I picked him up, and we drove down to David Cantor's house. David Cantor is the guy who runs Reach Media now. So we drove to his house in Florida near Fort Myers. So we drove to this man's house on the beach. Biggest football field in my mind, right? Wow. In my mind, sitting on stilts. So he meets me. He said, I've heard a lot of great things about you. The industry says you're the person to replace the Michael Baisden show. And I wanted to meet you. And if we can do this, would you be able to start on Monday? And I said, yeah. He said, we would go with Jasmine Saunders as your co-host and Guy Black as the producer. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be syndicated. I'm going to be on all these radio stations, but I'm voicing a lot of radio stations. So what does that mean if I'm the voice of some of these stations and their competitors? So I have to get rid of them. So I said to them, hey, here's the problem. I voice a lot of stations. So for me to drop them, I'm going to have this type of salary to supplement that. So I said, this is how much I want. And they're like, no problem. But we have to evaluate you. And I said, well, what does that mean? Well, we're going to see how you're doing. I said, well, I need a no cut deal. And they could not promise me that. It was kind of like one of those things where the guy Hector who brought me in said, I don't think they're going to go for it because this is just the way they do things. And I said, well, that's the way I got to have it because I can't take on a job and it doesn't last. But now I don't have these stations anymore, so I'll be out. So the station in Miami said, hey, if that deal doesn't work out, we have a job for you here at Hot 105 to do afternoons.
This is your third stint.
It's my third time now. Okay. And I'm thinking, okay, that's not promised. Miami said I could be at home because Miami had become my second home now. Mm-hmm. So I can be here for life. That syndicated job, they couldn't agree on that. I said, okay, well, thank you. I'm going to go to Miami, take this job. And I became the host at Hot 105 for 5 years.
Your story is one of self-worth because of the fact that you're able to demand these salaries because you have something to bring to the table. Ultimately, you decided to walk away. Outside of the contract negotiations, why did you decide to walk away from having this huge show? I mean, you were number one. I mean, you had it going on and you had voiceover and all this other stuff. Like, why did you decide to walk away from it all? Because
I think in my heart of all hearts, I knew my worth, and I knew every time the thought of syndication on Urban AC came about, and even when I was younger, my name was always in the conversation. If it wasn't Rick Party, it was Frank Ski and a few other people. Then it just kind of dwindled down to Rick Party and Frank Ski. So our names were always there. And I think a lot of it has to do with the class of radio that we come from. We preserved radio, and I think that's what the industry really respected about us. We preserved that style of radio, and we knew when to turn it on and turn it off when it comes to the genres of music, when it comes to families, when to shut up, when not to shut up. We just respected the listening audience, and we understood the business of radio, which most people don't understand today. They think it's really all about them. That kept me lasting power. And with everything that I'd gone through, the station said, more than likely when Tom Joyner retires, that you'll be the morning man. So, I'm 5 years I'm sticking in, and I'm like, I'm going to be the morning man. And the word was that Tom Joyner was going to, not Tom, but they were going to give it to Ricky Smiley because, Tom lost the company, it's a whole nother story. Right. And so the people said to Tom, or they didn't have to say anything to Tom, but this is going to be the end of the rope. And they couldn't pay Tom any more money. So Tom will say, he was like, okay, well, this is it for me. I don't, I'm Tom Joyner. I shouldn't have to really beg for more money. You should know to give it to me. And they wanted to go in a different direction. So they decided to go with Ricky Smiley. Ricky Smiley is by far a more popular person than a lot of people. I mean, he's, he has celebrity status. I mean, he's very funny. And people like that. So it only makes sense business-wise. You've got a person who has millions of followers. He's popular, around the world in the comedy circuit. And here's the thing. When it comes to radio, it's about business. If the client knows Ricky Smiley and they're a fan of Ricky Smiley, they're going to want to spend money on the radio station. No offense to you, Rick Party. I mean, we're not saying you're not good, but more people know Ricky Smiley. And that means money for us. And that made sense. So they couldn't give me the afternoon show. And I didn't want to continue doing afternoons. I mean, they could give me the morning show, and I don't want to continue doing afternoons forever. So I said, guys, I think I'm going to walk this out. I didn't have anything waiting for me. I still have my radio imaging stuff. I still doing stuff for ESPN and a bunch of radio stations, but I still love radio. And I literally didn't sign that contract, and they had a lot of money on the table. And they were like, do you know how much money this is? Do you know, like, if you add this up for all, we're giving you a multi-year deal. And you know how much money that is over 3 years? But in my mind, the young kid who got kicked out of high school saw himself being syndicated. And that's all I kept my eyes on. So I walked out on faith, and I said, I'm just going to thank you guys, but I'm going to go this route. God didn't fail me. He's never failed me. I don't know. It's like I'm a cat with like 9 lives. It's like if I get let go from a job, or if anything happens, it's like somebody scoops me up like that, or I find something to do to fill in the blanks. And always in my mind, that's how it's always been with me. While I always had a job, I was always looking for a job or thinking of something creative to do. That's just a part of my DNA. So when I walked away from that, in the midst of that, Sasha, the diva who worked at Kiss 104, she had been in the business, and she said, Rick, have you ever thought about doing syndication? I'm like, have I thought about it? I've been at the door many times. People wanted me to do it. I'm like, you have no idea. She said, how would you like to do a syndicated show? I said, I mean, I would love to. That's the goal. And she's like, well, what do we do? I said, well, we make a demo. Like we're on the radio together. So she being in Atlanta, me being in Miami, we made a demo through modern technology. As a fact, you can make a demo here on a Zoom, for example.
Right.
But the Zooms didn't really exist like that. Not like that. At least we didn't really know how clear it could sound. But we used another technology, Skype. And I EQ'd it to make it sound like as if we were in one room together. I had the demo. Gary Bernstein, who was the agent for the Ricky Smiley show and manager at one time, he really put that show out there. Gary was coming to town, and he said, hey, let's meet in Miami. Let's just go out for lunch. So we sat for lunch, and he said, Rick, what have you been up to? I said, funny you asked. Take a listen to this demo. He said, I like this. He go, who's this? He said, Sasha the Diva. I said, I've heard of her. He said, she's a Kiss 104. Yeah. This is good, Rick. This is really good. I could shop this. You guys could be syndicated. I'm saying, well, shop it. Do your magic. So, come on, man. You making this promise, make it happen. Don't talk. Say less. So he sent it out to everybody from Super Radio to ABC and all these other places. And Westwood One bit after 4 months traveling back and forth to New York. Sasha sneaking away from the job that she had in Atlanta. She was taking days off saying she was sick or whatever, but she was flying away to New York and all these other cities to meet with these people to shop a deal. And after all this traveling, 5 months, they called us back and said, we're going to sign the Rick and Sasha show to a nationally syndicated deal. And it was like, wow. That kid made it to syndication, man.
How different is being syndicated than being local in the market? That's part one of my question. And then part two is, do you have a lot more control over your show being syndicated?
Yeah. We have autonomy on the show. As far as music, we really don't care. We trust the team who picks the music. But as far as creatively, there are 3 of us. There's me, Sasha, and George Wilborn, who was recently added to the show. And George comes from the Michael Baisden show, ironically.
I remember him.
So that brings a whole level of expertise, someone who's actually been in syndication and who knows how to bring the funny. And Sasha she's just as real as she can be. So what we do is we just bring us to the table, and we just make it work. Me with my style of radio, the old school original style of radio. That's what I bring. Sasha with her, I'm just Sasha, take it or leave it. And George is bringing his George Wilborn. It's funny. And we just learned to gel together. Having a team like that and people who have been at the top of their game is not always an easy thing to do. And it was kind of rough in the beginning. But now it's like we just move, and it's like you learn how to allow people to be creative and respect what they bring and just sit back and see, hey, if it works. And if it works, get that check. Stop complaining. So that's me. Like I'm Rick Party. I'm Sasha Diva. I'm George Wilborn. We all the bosses on this show. We all bosses. So that's the problem with people. They don't know how to work together. And sometimes people let their egos get in the way and not understand that you have one common goal here. So
how do you guys really balance it out to make sure that everybody's personality shines without overshadowing each other?
Well, we understand what our roles are. I'm the quarterback. I kind of set up the play. I throw the passes. I'm a funny dude too, and George found that out. That he's not the only comedian. Because we have fun, but I don't try to be the comedian. I'm just I'm a radio dude. Quirky sometimes, a quirky, however you say it. Right. I'm that dude. I have a dry humor. Sometimes like I have like I can be talking to you, but it's like kind of like it's a little like a sneak up joke, They be like, did he just say that? You're like, yeah, he just said that. That's a Rick. He's like, he 50 something years old. So it's like, you're not gonna know what's coming out of his mouth. So it's like, just understand it's him. So sometimes I say stuff and I just have George just like really cracking up because he gets my dry humor. But what happens here is that I may open up the break. It's Rick and Sasha with George Wilborn. And did y'all hear? See, here's the thing. When you work with someone for so long, Sasha hears when I'm throwing a pass at her. I never have to say, Sasha, I have to say this is where you come in. No. I said, did you hear what happened to Joe Biden? And she'll come in, chow. She starts talking. She'll take the ball and run, right? And she'll start doing her thing. And then I'll pop in where I need to pop in. But Sasha, check this out. And then she's like, what? And then I start saying my thing. And then we're timing it out. We know how much time we have to get it across. And we learn to respect one another. We learn not to cut off each other when we're making a point. I've learned to not let Sasha speak. I learned to step out of the way, when the lady speaks, because the demographic, women 35, 44. So women want to hear more from a woman sometimes, actually a lot more. But they want to hear good conversation. So we've learned to do that. And then with George being a radio vet, he knows how not to just be funny, but he's also serious when there are serious topics. But when we're having fun, sometimes I may throw something at Jordan. I call it like a slow pitch, and he knows it's coming. So like if we're talking about Donald Trump, and like, for example, we're saying Donald Trump, he actually came into the Capitol House when those people were rioting. But people don't know this. But when Donald Trump walked into that room, he looked at all of them and George, he said to them, and George is thinking like, what am I going to say? So George, he said to them, okay, all of you, you're going to have to get out of here. So whatever it is, George already has it set up in his mind. So, and it's going to be funny, whatever it is. And we're right into that drop, the Rick and Sasha Morning Show, the jingle, whatever it is.
So you guys, chemistry is like,
the chemistry is like, at some point, I create better when I get rest, when I get to stay home. I don't like to do nothing at all. So when I had the Syndicated show, you have to go visit all of these markets that you're now on, right? So imagine they want you in New York City, they want you in Columbia, South Carolina, they want you in Kansas City, they want you in New Orleans. So you go home, you try to get a little rest, and then you may have a meeting at a conference somewhere, and you got to hop on the plane. So it's kind of like, and then worst of all, you got to wake up at 4:00 Eastern time in the morning to start a 6 a.m. show. And then it's even really worse when you're getting home late on a Sunday. You got about 4 hours of sleep because you got home at midnight and you got to wake up at 4 hours. It was too taxing. It was too much on my body. But now during the pandemic, the body and the mind requires rest for it to grow. So if people are partying all the time and they drinking, like with exercise and everything, people understand that the body needs one thing after a person exercises, right? It needs to rest. So you can't keep moving around doing all these things expecting for your body to do what it's supposed to do. And you can't expect your mind to think clearly if you're not getting any sleep. So when I got sleep, I was able to create, and I was invigorated again. I was able to be creative again. So and that technology, you know, I'm all over technology, absolutely love it. So that's why it was so easy for me to do some of the things I was doing in the pandemic, which I think to me, in all honesty, made the show sound a whole lot greater because we were sleeping. We were allowed to be creative rather than being cranky in the morning and, you know, trying to hit each other with pillows. You know, so yeah.
What's the one thing that you believe young Black personalities should know or should understand as they get into this crazy world of radio? Because it ain't all glitz and glam. We know this. We know also that we don't get into this for the money, but for the love of it. And for someone at your caliber, you have a lot to share.
Right.
So can you share some words of wisdom for us young cats?
My thing is, first understand that radio is a business and you are the product. Okay. They're making millions of dollars off you, your image, your talent, and your knowledge that this is a business. And if you understand first that it's not about you and how good you are, your job is to sell their main product, which are commercials. You have to help sell that. And not only that, you have to help bring business into the radio station. Understand the word yes. When they want you to do extra things, if you really want to make it, they want you to make an appearance. Make yourself available. This is how I got the jobs at BET and ESPN. It wasn't all about talent. It was the fact that they can rely on me. It was the fact that when they sent me a commercial at 2:30, and if I saw it at 2:30, I'm going to start working on it at 2:31 if I don't have something else. So when you can turn stuff around, you're good for their business, because guess what? For a company like any radio station, it helps them look good when you're giving them quality work, and you're helping them sell their product. And that's what it truly boils down to. It is not NOT about you. It's not. It's about the radio station.